In this video, we're gonna make the third or the last bag of the foldable bag project series. The finished measurements of this bag is approximately 17 inches by 16 inches and the depth is about 5 inches. For the patchwork, we're going to use 5-inch squares. You can either use charm pack or you can cut from your scrap, make this bag a little scrap busting project. You can really have fun with your fabric choice, mix and match different color. This will make a great summer bag or a beach bag as well. This bag comes with a little folding flap at the back, so when it is in a folded position, it looks really cute. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's get started. Lay out 16 5-inch squares in 4 rows and 4 columns, just like so. And then sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance, 1 row at a time. Press towards one side. When pressing the seams, you want to press each row towards opposite direction. For example, if you press the seams of the first row towards the left, you want to press the seams of the second row towards the right, and vice versa. This way you can easily match the seams or nest the seams later. Now go ahead and sew the first row and the second row together. Nest the seams, and if necessary, you can use some pins. And then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Alright, so the front exterior piece is done. Now go ahead and make another one for the back exterior. For the lining, you want to cut 2 pieces of fabric exactly the same size as the exterior pieces. To make the folding flap, you will need 12 pieces of 2.5-inch squares, so you can either cut them individually or you can use 3 charm packs and cut them in quarter. Lay them out in 4 rows and 3 columns, just like shown here, and then go ahead and sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance, 1 row at a time. And here I've already sewn my patchwork together. Layer it with a piece of batting and a backing fabric that you cut a slight larger than the flap itself. And then go ahead and quilt as desired. I quilted mine with my walking foot in diamond shape design. And this is how mine turned out. Now go ahead and trim off all the excess batting and the backing fabric. Next, we're gonna make the rounded corners. So I'm going to flip this to the wrong side just so you can see what I'm doing. Now take your thread spool and then position that at the edges of the corner, and then use your fabric marker to trace the curved shape, just like that. And you want to do the same for all the corners. And then cut following the curved shape. Next, we're going to bind this flap with a bias tape. I'm using here a single fold bias tape measuring 1 inch wide. You can also use 1/2 inch wide double fold bias tape. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pin the edges of the bias tape to the edges of the flap, starting from the center of the longer side. Leave about 3-4 inches of clearance and a couple inches of tail on both sides for overlapping. And then go ahead and stitch following the fold line crease. Now I'm going to overlap my bias tape by 1/2 inch. So I'm going to lay them on top of each other, just like that. And then I'm going to cut the excess fabric of the upper tape with 1/2 inch of overlap. So I'm just going to eyeball it. Now I'm going to lay the bias tapes right side together, opening the fold all the way, and then stitch with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Now I'm going to finger press the seams open and then continue stitching. Now I'm going to wrap my binding towards the back side and secure that in place with some sewing clips. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish my binding with slip stitches. You may also use sewing machine if you want, simply stitch along the edges. Alright, I almost forgot to attach the elastic. You will need a 4-inch long elastic and the width should be between an 8 to 3/8 of an inch. Mine is 3/8 of an inch wide. Now fold the elastic in half just like that. Make sure it isn't twisted and then position that on the top edge of the wrong side of your flap and center the position just like so. You could do it right before you attach the binding. It's probably easier that way. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch along the edges with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. First, I'm going to make sure that I get the binding out of the way. Now that I've sewn my elastic, I'm going to go ahead and finish my binding. Now fold the elastic up just like that and then go ahead and run a couple of stitches to tuck it in place. Measure 1.5 inch from the bottom edge of the flap right on the center and then put a little mark there, and this is gonna be the placement for the button. Now go ahead and sew the button in place. Position the flap right on the center of your back exterior piece just like so. So the elastic should be facing up and the button should be facing down. Pin them in place. Then you want to go ahead and stitch in the ditch or right on the seams of these two squares on the center. Next, you want to cut up 2.5 inch square notches on both bottom corners of the fabric. Now lay the front and back exterior pieces right side together, pin them in place, and then sew the sides and the bottom with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Open the corner, match the seams, pin them in place, and then go ahead and sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Alright, so the exterior shell is done. Sew the lining exactly the same way you did the exterior shell. However, you want to leave about 4 to 5 inches of opening at the bottom of your lining to turn the bag inside out later. Sew the straps exactly the same way as bag number 1, so you can go ahead and refer to the first tutorial. Position the strap right by the seams of the first and the fourth block, just like shown here. And then go ahead and sew them in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. And once you've done that, you want to repeat the same with the other side. Turn your exterior shell wrong side out and then keep the lining right side out. Insert the lining into the exterior shell, so the right side of the lining should be touching the right side of the exterior shell. Pin them in place, starting by matching the side seams. And then sew all around with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now turn your bag inside out through the opening hole. Then go to your ironing board and press along the edges. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and top stitch. Now pull the lining out and find the opening hole. You want to fold the raw edges in about 3/8 of an inch and then go ahead and sew the opening hole close. Once you've done that, you can put the lining back inside and your bag is pretty much done at this point. Now I'm going to show you how to fold the bag. So you want to lay your bag right side up and then flatten up the bottom a little bit. Now fold the strap down just like that. And then you want to fold the bag in a third just like so. And then do the same with the opposite side. Now fold the top towards the center, then fold the bottom towards the center as well. Now roll up the folding flap just like so. And then go ahead and hook the elastic to the button. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. In case you're missing the part 1 of this foldable bag tutorial, I've got another 2 cute bags, so you can go ahead and have a look in this link. And I shall see you next time with another fun sewing and quilting projects. Goodbye!